Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at AI and elections.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild
Yeah.
combination, right? And we got some great material to go through for this one.
Oh,
Reports, news articles, even some expert analyses that'll help us kind of see the global picture of how AI is being used
yeah.
to sway voters.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that we're going to talk about is really kind of like a
I know.
straight out a sci-fi thriller.
Absolutely. It's really crucial to understand the implications too, because the lines between what's real
Right.
and what's fake online is getting incredibly blurry, especially when we're talking about elections.
Okay, so let's start off with something that'll like really grab your attention, and that's deep fakes.
Oh, yeah.
And these aren't just your average Photoshop jobs. We're talking about
Uh,
AI that can create videos and audio
right.
that are almost impossible to tell apart from the real thing.
It's wild.
It's really wild. I
Uh,
mean, manipulating voices, fabricating entire speeches,
Girl.
even like tailoring messages to target
Uh-huh.
specific groups of voters.
It's fascinating the technology behind it too, because AI can analyze just huge amounts of data.
Right.
So it learns a person's mannerisms, their voice, even like their facial expressions.
Yeah.
And this means they can make these incredibly convincing imitations and then use those to spread disinformation.
And it's not just theoretical either.
Yeah.
During the U.S. Democratic primaries, there was this deep fake audio message.
Right.
And it was supposedly from Joe Biden,
Oh, wow.
urging people not to vote. Can you imagine the chaos that that could cause?
Absolutely. Especially if you weren't like tech savvy enough to know that it was fake.
Right, exactly.
The potential for manipulation is immense, and it's not just about creating fake content either.
Right.
AI can like supercharge these disinformation campaigns by automating the spread of fake news
Okay.
through bots and by manipulating social media.
So it's almost like an army of digital puppeteers just kind of pulling strings
Right.
behind the scenes. And we've already seen this in action with that fake France 24 video
Oh, yeah.
that went viral. Do you remember that one? This video was made using AI, and it falsely accused Ukraine of planning to kill the French president. And it spread so rapidly through these Russian networks.
Yeah,
It just goes to show how quickly and effectively AI can be weaponized.
absolutely. And the scale and the speed at which AI can generate and spread this type of content is really what makes it so difficult to control.
Yeah, it's like trying to put out a wildfire
Right.
that's just constantly being fanned by algorithms.
Exactly.
And this kind of brings us to the role of these big tech companies like Meta and Microsoft.
Yeah.
They are under immense pressure to do something about this AI-driven election interference.
Hmm.
And we're seeing new regulations popping up all over the place.
It seems like everywhere you look.
Everywhere you look. The European Union, for instance, is really leading the charge with its Digital Services Act,
Oh, yeah.
which is essentially a set of rules designed to hold online platforms accountable
Okay.
for the content that they host, especially during elections.
That makes sense.
And then there's the EU's AI Act, which is even more specific.
Right.
It focuses on things like generative AI and how it can be used to influence voters.
Mm-hmm.
And even France has gotten in on the action.
Oh, really?
They've got their own Ceron law,
Yeah.
which has provisions for tackling this AI-generated content.
Interesting.
It seems like everybody's trying to figure out how to put the genie back in the bottle.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. The question is, can regulations keep pace
Right.
with this rapidly evolving technology? And even if they can, how effective are they really going to be in the face of these increasingly sophisticated AI tools?
Yeah, it's a total cat and mouse game.
It is.
But here's the thing. This isn't just a problem in one country. We're seeing this AI-driven election meddling happening globally.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There have been cases reported in Slovakia, the UK, even India. And then there was that incident
Right.
with the Israeli Foreign Ministry that used AI-generated fake accounts
Oh, wow.
to try and influence the U.S. Congress.
That's wild.
It just goes to show that this is a global issue.
Absolutely. It's a global phenomenon that really requires global cooperation.
Right.
If we want to protect the integrity of elections,
Yeah.
we need to work together to combat this threat.
So we've seen the dark side of this whole AI election situation.
Hmm.
But are there any glimmers of hope out there? What are people doing to fight back?
Well, there are several strategies, and some of them are pretty creative.
Okay.
And actually, some of them even use AI itself to fight fire with fire.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
So one approach is watermarking AI-generated content.
Okay.
so that you can easily identify it as being fake. It's like a
Yes.
digital fingerprint that exposes the manipulation.
So it's basically a way to distinguish between what's real and what's AI generated.
Exactly.
So what else are people doing?
Well, education is another really important element.
Okay.
It's crucial to give people the skills to spot disinformation and to be more critical
Yeah.
of what they see online.
I feel like media literacy should be taught in schools.
I totally agree. We need to empower individuals to be more discerning about the information that they're consuming.
Yeah, for sure. So we're arming people with knowledge, which is great. But what about the platforms themselves? What are they doing?
Yeah, they're definitely under scrutiny, and they are starting to implement measures to combat AI-driven manipulation.
Okay.
Like developing algorithms to try and detect and remove these fake accounts and bot activity.
Okay, that sounds promising.
Yeah.
Are there any examples of this actually working?
We've seen some progress. During some recent elections, some platforms were able to flag and remove deepfake videos before they went viral.
Okay.
But it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
Because the technology that creates these fakes is always evolving.
Right, yeah. It's like that constant game of cat and mouse.
Exactly.
It sounds like we need a multi-pronged approach, like regulations, education, tech companies stepping up.
Yeah.
It's going to take a village to tackle this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's another really crucial piece of this puzzle, too.
Okay.
And that's promoting collaboration and information sharing. So, intelligence agencies, researchers, tech companies, they need to work together to identify these emerging threats.
Right.
And then develop countermeasures.
So it's like a global task force dedicated to protecting our elections.
Exactly. And this task force needs to be agile,
Okay.
constantly learning and adjusting their strategies as the technology evolves.
It feels a little overwhelming, to be honest.
Oh.
It's like we're facing this invisible enemy that can shapeshift and adapt so quickly.
Right.
So what can regular people like us actually do to make a difference?
That's a great question, and one we should all be asking ourselves.
Yeah.
I think the first step is awareness. We need to understand the threat, how it works, and the potential impact it could have on our democracies.
Okay, so we educate ourselves. What's next?
Well, then we need to become more critical of the information we're taking in, Don't just blindly share something because it fits your beliefs.
Right.
You need to verify the source, look for evidence, and just be wary of, emotionally charged content designed to provoke outrage or fear.
So take a step back and think before you click.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
don't underestimate the power of conversation either. Talk to your friends and family about this.
Right.
Share what you've learned. Encourage them to be more discerning online and create a collective awareness of this threat.
Make it a dinner table conversation. Get people thinking about it in their everyday lives.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
finally, don't be afraid to hold those in power accountable.
Hmm.
Demand transparency from your elected officials and from tech companies.
Okay.
Push for regulations, better enforcement, more accountability when it comes to AI and elections.
So exercise our rights as citizens and make our voices heard.
It sounds like there's a lot we can do even as individuals.
Absolutely.
It's not about passively accepting this new reality, but actually shaping it.
You got it.
Okay, so we've talked about the problem, the potential solutions, and what we can all do. But there's still this big question. What does the future hold?
That's the million-dollar question, and I don't think anyone has a crystal ball.
But one thing is for sure, AI is here to stay, and its impact on elections is only going to grow in the coming years.
So how do we navigate this uncharted territory? How do we make sure that AI is used to strengthen our democracies rather than undermine them?
Well, I think it's going to require a fundamental shift in our thinking. We need to stop viewing AI as some magical solution or as this unstoppable threat.
Okay.
It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
So it's up to us to wield it responsibly.
Exactly. We need to be having open and honest conversations about the ethical implications of AI, and we need to work together to develop solutions that prioritize human well-being and democratic values.
It sounds like this is just the beginning of a long and complex journey.
It is.
We're at a crossroads,
Yeah.
and the choices we make now are going to have big consequences.
No doubt. It's a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
But I also think it's an opportunity to rethink our relationship with technology and make sure that it serves humanity, not the other way around.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. It's daunting, but also empowering to know that we have a role to play in shaping this future.
I agree. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
The more we understand about AI and its implications, the better equipped we'll be to deal with this new landscape.
So for our listeners out there, what's the one key takeaway you want them to remember from this conversation?
That they have agency, they have a voice, And they have a responsibility to engage in this conversation and demand better from our leaders and from our institutions.
Right.
The future of our democracies may depend on it.
Wow. It really has been eye-opening. We've covered a lot of ground from those deep fakes to all those regulations to how we can actually take action.
Yeah.
And it really feels like we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this topic so fascinating. It's
Yeah.
just constantly evolving. There are always new challenges and new opportunities popping up.
It's almost like a living, breathing thing. But, the main thing that I'm taking away from this is a sense of cautious optimism.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, the threats are real,
Right.
but there are people out there fighting back, and we can all do something to help.
I completely agree. We can't just sit back and let technology run the show.
Yeah.
We have to be a part of this. We have to shape how AI is used and make sure it reflects our values.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What are some things our listeners can do to learn more about this?
Well, there's a ton of information online, and there are some great organizations doing really important work like the AI Now Institute and the Center for Democracy and Technology.
Okay.
They publish reports, host events, all sorts of resources to help people understand this whole intersection of AI and democracy.
So those are some good starting points, and I'm sure we can include links to those in the show notes.
Definitely.
But what about specific actions? Beyond staying informed, what can people do to really make a difference?
One really important thing is supporting those organizations that are fighting disinformation and promoting media literacy. You can volunteer your time or donate or even just spread the word about what they're doing.
So put our money where our mouth is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, voting is crucial.
Yes.
Engage in elections at all levels and make your voice heard on these issues.
So it all comes back to being an informed and engaged citizen.
Right.
Right. Not just in the digital world, but in the real world, too.
Absolutely. The future of our democracies really depends on us being willing to participate and hold our leaders accountable and demand a future where technology helps us, not controls us.
Well said. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI and elections. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you've learned some valuable things along the way.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you and with our listeners. And until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay vigilant.